Today is the 6th of August. We are continuing with the Khandha Samyutta, 22nd chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya. Now we come to Sutta 22.82. This sutta is also found in the Majjhima Nikaya. The same sutta is Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 109 called the Mahapunama Sutta. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in the eastern part, in the mansion of Migara's mother. Migara's mother is a nickname for Visakha, together with a great Sangha of monks. On that occasion, the Uposatha day of the 15th, a full moon night, the Blessed One was sitting out in the open, surrounded by the Sangha of monks. Let's stop here for a moment. It so happens that today is also a full moon night, so we are also seated here. Then a certain monk rose from his seat, arranged his upper robe over one shoulder, raised his joined hands in reverential salutation towards the Blessed One, and said to him, "Venerable Sir, I would ask the Blessed One about a certain point, if the Blessed One would grant me the favor of answering my question." And the Buddha said, "Well then, monk, sit down in your own seat and ask whatever you wish." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the monk replied. Then he sat down in his own seat and said to the Blessed One, "Aren't these the 5 aggregates subject to clinging, or the 5 aggregates of attachment?" "Venerable Sir, that is the body aggregate of clinging, of attachment, the feeling aggregate of attachment, the perception aggregate of attachment, the volition aggregate of attachment, the consciousness aggregate of attachment." And the Buddha said, "Those are the 5 aggregates of attachment, monk. That is the form aggregate of attachment, the feeling aggregate of attachment, the perception aggregate of attachment, the volition aggregate of attachment, the consciousness aggregate of attachment." Saying, "Good, Venerable Sir," that monk delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's statement. Then he asked the Blessed One a further question. "But, Venerable Sir, in what are these 5 aggregates of attachment rooted?" "These 5 aggregates of attachment, monk, are rooted in desire." "Venerable Sir, is that attachment the same as these 5 aggregates of attachment, or is the attachment something apart from the 5 aggregates of attachment?" And Buddha said, Monks, that attachment is neither the same as these 5 aggregates of attachment, nor is the attachment something apart from the 5 aggregates of attachment, but rather the desire and lust for them, that is the attachment there. Stop here for a moment. Here the Buddha is saying that the 5 aggregates, the attachment is not the 5 aggregates, but it is also not apart from the 5 aggregates. It is the desire and lust for them, that is the attachment. Saying, "Good, Venerable Sir," that monk asked the Blessed One a further question. "But, Venerable Sir, can there be a diversity in the desire and lust for the 5 aggregates of attachment?" "There can be, monk," the Blessed One said. "Here, monk, it occurs to someone, may I have such body in the future, may I have such feeling in the future, may I have such perception in the future, may I have such volition in the future, may I have such consciousness in the future." Thus, monk, there can be diversity in the desire and lust for the 5 aggregates of attachment. Stop here for a moment. So here, the diversity in the desire and lust may be like somebody thinks, "Oh, in the future, may I be reborn and have a Deva body or a Devi body. Or in the future, in my future life, may I have pleasant feelings all the time, no suffering," etc. Saying, "Good, Venerable Sir," that monk asked the Blessed One a further question. "In what way, Venerable Sir, does the designation aggregates apply to the aggregates?" And Buddha said, "Whatever kind of body there is, monk, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, This is called the body or form aggregate. Whatever kind of feeling there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, this is called the feeling aggregate. Whatever kind of perception there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, this is called the perception aggregate. Whatever kind of volition there are, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, this is called the volition aggregate. Whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, this is called the consciousness aggregate. It is in this way, monk, that the designation aggregates applies to the aggregates. Saying good, Venerable Sir, that monk asked the Blessed One a further question. What is the cause and condition, Venerable Sir, for the manifestation of the body aggregate? What is the cause and condition for the manifestation of the feeling aggregate, for the manifestation of the perception aggregate, volition, consciousness aggregate? And the Buddha said, the four great elements, monks, are the cause and condition for the manifestation of the body aggregate. Contact is the cause and condition for the manifestation of the feeling aggregate. Contact is the cause and condition for the manifestation of the perception aggregate. Contact is the cause and condition for the manifestation of the volition aggregate. Nama Rupa, or mentality and materiality, is the cause and condition for the manifestation of the consciousness aggregate. I stop here for a moment. This one, I think earlier we read in some other sutta, saying that where these aggregates come from, the origin, and we read that the body comes from the four great elements, and feeling, perception and volition comes from contact at the six sense doors. At any of the six sense doors, if this external sense object comes in contact with the sense base, then feeling arises, followed by perception and thinking and volition. And then consciousness always comes together with Namarupa, mentality and materiality. They are Siamese twins. They exist together and die together, inseparable. And then this monk asked again, Venerable Sir, how does identity view come to be? And the Buddha said, here monk, the unlearned ordinary person who does not see noble ones and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, who does not see superior persons and is unskilled and undisciplined or untrained in their Dhamma, regards body as self or self as possessing body or body as in self or self as in body. Similarly for feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. That is how identity view comes to be. Stop here for a moment. This identity view is Sakaya Ditti, and Sakaya Ditti is as stated here. That means we identify ourselves with the body and mind, which is also, the body and mind is also the five aggregates. So we regard the aggregates as the self, or as belonging to the self, or as being in the self, or the self as being in the aggregates. So because we identify the body and the mind with the self, so we have this identity view. But, Venerable Sir, how does identity view come not to be? Here, monk, the learned noble disciple who sees noble ones and is skilled and trained in their Dhamma, who sees superior persons and is skilled and trained in their Dhamma, does not regard body as self, or self as possessing body, or body as in the self, or self as in the body. Similarly for feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. That is how identity view does not come to be. Stop here for a moment. So here, when a person a noble disciple, he understands Dhamma, then he dissociates himself from the five aggregates. He can see that the five aggregates, the body and mind, are impermanent, subject to change, subject to conditions. So because of that, it cannot be the self, does not even belong to the self. So that's how identity view ceases. What, Venerable Sir, is the gratification, the danger and the escape in the case of body? What is the gratification, the danger and escape in the case of feeling, perception, volition and consciousness? And the Buddha replied, the pleasure and joy, monk, that arise in dependence on body, that is the gratification in body. Stop here for a moment. This one we related earlier, how when you see a beautiful girl in the prime of her beauty, when she's 16 years old, that is gratification in body. And then that body is impermanent, suffering and subject to change. This is the danger in body. Stop here for a moment. That day we also said, because of impermanence, the same body, the same beautiful 16-year-old girl, after some time when she gets cancer, you see her lying on the bed, terminal cancer, and she's passing out urine and excrement on her bed, and her whole body become weak and yellowish and pale, and she's near death already. Then you can see the beauty is all gone. That is the danger in form. Or the same beautiful girl, when she's 80 or 90 years old, then she looks an ugly old woman. That is the danger in the body. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for body. This is the escape from body. The pleasure and joy, similarly, the pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, that is the gratification. And then the fact that these aggregates are impermanent, suffering and subject to change, that is the danger in them. And the removal and abandonment of desire and lust for the aggregates, that is the escape from the aggregates. Saying, good, Venerable Sir, that monk delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's statement. Then he asked the Blessed One a further question. Venerable Sir, how should one know, how should one see, so that in regard to this body, with consciousness and in regard to all external signs, I-making, mind-making, and the underlying tendency to conceit no longer occurs within? Stop here for a moment. So here he's asking, how can we eliminate this tendency to think I am, I exist, this perception, this conceit in us, that ego making, how to get rid of it? And the Buddha said, any kind of body whatsoever, monk, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, one sees all bodies as they really are with correct wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Stop here for a moment. So here we understand that because of impermanence, all bodies, whether you consider as your body or your daughter or your son, etc., because of impermanence, they will all leave us, they will all be separated from us. So if we attach to them, they give us suffering. If we let go, then we can see this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Similarly for feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. When one knows and sees thus, monk, then in regard to this body with consciousness and in regard to all external signs, I-making, mind-making, and the underlying tendency to conceit no longer occurs within. Now on that occasion, the following reflection arose in the mind of a certain monk. So it seems that body is non-self, feeling is non-self, perception is non-self, or not self, volition is not self, consciousness is not self. What self then will deeds done by what is not self affect? Then the Blessed One, knowing with his own mind the reflection in the mind of that monk, addressed the monks thus: "It is possible, monks, that some senseless man here, obtuse and ignorant, with his mind dominated by craving, might think that he can outstrip the teacher's teaching thus. So it seems that form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness is not self. What self then will deeds done by what is not self affect? Now monks, you have been trained by me through interrogation here and there in regard to diverse teachings. What do you think, monk? Is body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, noble sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? And they say, suffering, noble sir. Is what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus: this is mine, this I am, this is myself? No, noble sir. Similarly, is feeling permanent or impermanent? Perception, volition, consciousness, impermanent or impermanent? Permanent or impermanent? And they say impermanent, noble sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, noble sir. Is what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus: this is mine, this I am, this is myself? No, noble sir. Therefore, seeing thus the noble disciple, he becomes disenchanted and he becomes dispassionate, then he becomes liberated. These are the 10 questions the monk came to ask, 2 about the aggregates, whether the same, can there be designation in the cause, 2 about identity, 1 each on gratification and this body with consciousness. So the Buddha's, towards the end, is driving home the point that all the aggregates, which basically are body and mind, are impermanent and a source of suffering, subject to change, not fit to regard them as I or mine. So he's answering that monk who had that thought indirectly. Because this monk, after hearing all that talk about not self, he still cannot let go of that self. So you see, the Buddha, sometimes he has disciples like this who, like the first one who asks intelligent questions, and then the Buddha will answer him, and not only for him, it's for all the other monks also in the assembly. So you see from here, generally the teaching is the same, it's only whether hearing the teaching we can let go or not. If our mind is not clear enough, and our attachment is still strong, then we cannot let go. It's only when our mind is clear and that we can let go. 22.83 at Savatthi. There the Venerable Ananda addressed the monks thus: "Friends, monks." "Friend," those monks replied. The Venerable Ananda said this: "Friends, the Venerable Puna Mantani Putta was very helpful to us when we were newly ordained." Stop here for a moment. This Puna Mantani Putta was one of the great Dhamma teachers, and he belonged to the Sakyan clan. There's a place I saw, I think in some sutta, where the Buddha was asking the monks, he was asking like in his homeland among the Sakyans, who is a good Dhamma preacher, and they told him, Puna Mantani Putta. And Puna Mantani Putta, here Ananda was saying, was his teacher who brought him to attain the vision of the Dhamma, that means attain stream entry, you can see through here. This Puna Mantani Putta, when I was in practicing Mahayana Buddhism, we used to do chanting, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the name is Fulo No Man Toloniche. Yeah? Fulo No Man Toloniche. Sounds the same, Puna Mantani Putta. And then Venerable Ananda continued. He exhorted us with the following exhortation: "It is by clinging, Ananda, that the notion I am occurs, not without clinging. And by clinging to what does I am occur, not without clinging? It is by clinging to form that I am occurs, not without clinging. It is by clinging to feeling, to perception, to volition, to consciousness that I am occurs, or I exist occurs, not without clinging. Suppose, friend Ananda, a young woman or a man, youthful and fond of ornaments, would examine her own facial image in a mirror or in a bowl filled with pure, clear, clean water. She will look at it with clinging, not without clinging. So too, it is by clinging to form or body that I am occurs, not without clinging. It is by clinging to feeling, to perception, to volition, to consciousness that I am occurs, not without clinging. The crickets like to give us background music. What do you think, friend Ananda? Is body permanent or impermanent? Then Ananda says impermanent. And then he says, what is impermanent, suffering or happiness? And he says, suffering. Is what is impermanent, suffering, subject to change, fit to be regarded as this I am. This is mine, this I am, this is myself. So he says, no. Then says, if a noble disciple understands this, then he becomes disenchanted with the five aggregates and becomes dispassionate and he becomes liberated. Friends, the Venerable Puna Mantani Putta was very helpful to us when we were newly ordained. He exhorted us with that exhortation. And when I heard his Dhamma teaching, I made the breakthrough to the Dhamma. So here he's saying, he attained the vision of the Dhamma, stream entry, because of Puna Mantani Putta. It's very helpful to have a good monk teacher to help the others attain stream entry by explaining the Dhamma in the right way. 22.84 at Savatthi. Now on that occasion, the Venerable Tissa, the Blessed One's paternal cousin, informed a number of monks, friends, my body seems as if it has been drugged. I have become disoriented. The teachings are no longer clear to me. Sloth and torpor persist, obsessing my mind. I am leading the holy life dissatisfied, and I have doubt about the teachings. Stop here for a moment. Sometimes some monks are like that, and they are not practicing well. Then sloth and torpor is always controlling their mind, and they start to have doubt about the teacher, doubt about the place, doubt about this and doubt about that, and then they are unhappy when they think about outside the world. They miss their friends, they miss their relatives and all that, and then they think of disrobing. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and reported this matter to him. The Blessed One then addressed a certain monk thus, come monk, tell the monk Tissa in my name that the teacher calls him. Yes, Venerable Sir, the monk replied. And he went to the Venerable Tissa and told him, the teacher calls you, friend Tissa. Yes, friend, the Venerable Tissa replied. And he approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to him, is it true, Tissa, that you inform a number of monks thus? Friends, my body seems as if it were drugged. I have become disoriented. The teachings are no longer clear to me. Sloth and torpor persist, obsessing my mind. I am leading the holy life dissatisfied, and I have doubt about the teachings. Yes, Venerable Sir. What do you think, Tissa? If one is not devoid of lust for body, not devoid of desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving for it, then with the change and alteration of that body, do sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair arise within? Yes, Venerable Sir. Good, Tissa. So it is, Tissa, with one who is not devoid of lust for body. If one is not devoid of lust for feeling, similarly for perception, volition, consciousness, not devoid of desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving for them, then with the change and alteration of those aggregates, do sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair arise within? Yes, Venerable Sir. Good, Tissa. So it is, Tissa, with one who is not devoid of lust for the aggregates. If one is devoid of lust for body, devoid of desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving for it, then with the change and alteration of that form, do sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair arise within? No, Venerable Sir. Good, Tissa. So it is, Tissa, with one who is devoid of lust for body. Similarly, if one is devoid of lust for feeling, for perception, for volition, for consciousness, devoid of desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving for them, then with the change and alteration of the aggregates, do sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair arise within. No one will serve. Good, Tissa. So it is, Tissa, for one who is devoid of lust for the aggregates. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is trying to explain the Dhamma very clearly for this Tissa, knowing that Tissa is still very much attached to the 5 aggregates. That's why he has doubts about the teaching. He is thinking of disobeying. So the Buddha is trying to make him see very clearly that if you continue to attach to the 5 aggregates, you will suffer. What do you think, Tissa? Is body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is suffering, is impermanent, subject to change, fit to be regarded as this is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. And seeing thus, a noble disciple becomes dispassionate and attains liberation. Similarly, for feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. Suppose, Tissa, there were 2 men, one unskilled in the path and the other skilled in the path. The man unskilled in the path would ask the skilled man a question about the path, and the latter would say, "Come, good man, this is the path. Go along it a little way, and you will see a fork in the road. Avoid the left-hand branch and take the right-hand branch. Go a little further, and you will see a dense thicket. Go a little further, and you will see a vast, marshy swamp. Go a little further, and you will see a steep precipice. Go a little further, and you will see a delightful expanse of level ground." I have made up this simile, Tissa, in order to convey a meaning. This here is the meaning. The man unskilled in the path, this is a designation for the ordinary worldling. The man skilled in the path, this is a designation for the Tathagata, Arahant, Sammasambuddha. The forked road, this is a designation for doubt. The left-hand branch, this is a designation for the wrong, Eightfold Path. The right-hand branch, this is a designation for the Noble Eightfold Path, that is right view, right thoughts, etc. The dense thicket, this is a designation for ignorance. The vast, marshy swamp, this is a designation for sensual pleasures. The steep precipice, this is a designation for despair due to anger. The delightful expanse of level ground, this is a designation for Nibbana. Rejoice, Tissa, rejoice, Tissa. I am here to exhort, I am here to assist, I am here to instruct. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated, the Venerable Tissa delighted in the Blessed One's statement. You see, towards the end, the Buddha says, you have to go through this, the spiritual path. You have to come to a fork road now where you have doubt. Then if you take the right turn, you practice the Noble Eightfold Path correctly, then you must cross the dense thicket, the dense forest area, which is ignorance. If you walk the right path, you must go past ignorance. You have knowledge. And then after that, you have to go through sensual pleasures, the vast marshy swamp. Sensual pleasures will disturb you on the spiritual path. Then the steep precipice is despair due to anger. Anger also will disturb you. Then if you go through this, go to ignorance, go through sensual pleasures, go through anger, and finally you reach the delightful expanse of level ground. That is the Nibbana. So everybody who walks the spiritual path also has the same problems. It's not easy to walk the spiritual path. In the beginning you have a lot of doubts, whether you are ready to walk the spiritual path or not, whether you are willing to walk, whether the family will let you go or not, and all these things. And then if you make the determination, then you still have to struggle with yourself. You think you let go already, you wear the ropes, but you inside you still haven't let go. So still a lot of kilesa, defilements within you. You have to fight. like sensual pleasures, temper and all these things. Then if you make the effort, you plot on, you go to the jungle thicket, you go to the swamp, marshy swamp, then you have to climb up the steep precipice. Finally only you reach the top, level ground. So it's only if you have the good fortune to have a good teacher, then it becomes a bit easier. Otherwise, a lot of people, they don't have a good teacher, they have to struggle very hard. 22.85. On one occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's spa. On that occasion, the following pernicious view had arisen in a monk named Yamaka. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, a monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death. A number of monks heard that such a pernicious view had arisen in the monk Yamaka. Then they approached the Venerable Yamaka and exchanged greetings with him, after which they sat down to one side and said to him, "Is it true, friend Yamaka, that such a pernicious view as this has arisen in you? As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, a monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death." And he said, "Exactly so, friends. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, a monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death." And they said, "Friend Yamaka, do not speak thus. Do not misinterpret the Blessed One. It is not good to misrepresent the Blessed One. The Blessed One would not speak thus. A monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death." And stop here for a moment. So here, this monk, Yamaka, he has this view that an Arahant, when he dies, he is destroyed and does not exist anymore. Actually, this is partly true, but the way he has said it is wrong, because he says a monk is annihilated when he dies. A monk who has finished his work, his asavas are destroyed, is annihilated, does not exist anymore after death. It is partly true in the sense that when an Arahant enters Nibbana, he does not exist anymore. But the Dhamma is teaching us that even before he dies, actually he does not exist. The self does not exist. There is no such thing as the Arahant, the person. Afterwards, when we go through the sutta, you will understand. Because person is just a collection of 5 aggregates. And this collection of 5 aggregates are impermanent. So when the 5 aggregates come together, you say there is a person, there is a being, right? But it's just a temporary condition. In the first place, there's no such thing. Just like a flower. When you plant a flowering plant, initially there's no flower, and then you put water, you put fertilizer. After some time, the flower comes into existence, right? Then after some time, the flower will wilt. Then you ask, where did the flower go? The flower is just a condition, just a temporary condition. It does not, basically there's no such thing as a flower. It's a temporary manifestation. So a being is also a temporary manifestation. Yet although he was admonished by the monks in this way, the Venerable Yamaka still obstinately grasped that pernicious view, adhered to it, and declared, "As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, a monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death." Since those monks were unable to detach the Venerable Yamaka from that pernicious view, they rose from their seats, approached the Venerable Sariputta, and told him all that had occurred, adding, "It would be good if the Venerable Sariputta would approach the monk Yamaka out of compassion for him." The Venerable Sariputta consented by silence. Then in the evening, the Venerable Sariputta emerged from seclusion. He approached the Venerable Yamaka and exchanged greetings with him, after which he sat down to one side and said to him, "Is it true, friend Yamaka, that such a pernicious view as this has arisen in you. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, a monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death. And he said, exactly so, friend. And Venerable Sariputta asked him, what do you think, friend Yamaka? Is body permanent or impermanent? The impermanent, friend, is what is impermanent, suffering or happiness? Suffering is what is impermanent, suffering, subject to change, fit to be regarded as this is mine, this I am, this is myself. And he said, no, friend. And so the Venerable Sariputta said, seeing thus the noble Aryan disciple, he becomes disenchanted with body, becomes dispassionate and becomes liberated. Similarly for feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. So here Venerable Sariputta is making the point that the five aggregates are impermanent and a source of suffering, not fit to be regarded as I and mine. What do you think, friend Yamaka? Do you regard body as the Tathagata, the Buddha? No, friend. Do you regard feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as the Tathagata? No, friend. So here he's saying that the body, the five aggregates by themselves is not the Buddha. What do you think, friend Yamaka? Do you regard the Tathagata as in the body? No, friend. Do you regard the Tathagata as apart from body? No, friend. Do you regard the Tathagata as in feeling? He says, no, friend. As apart from feeling, etc., volition, consciousness. So here, Venerable Sariputta is asking him, do you think the Buddha is inside the aggregates? And he says, no, because the aggregates are impermanent. How can the Buddha be inside the aggregates? Then do you think the aggregates have nothing to do with the Buddha? Again, he says, no, you cannot say the aggregates have nothing to do with the Buddha. What do you think, friend Yamaka? Do you regard body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness taken together as the Tathagata? And he says, no, friend. These five aggregates also, even you put them together, it cannot be the Tathagata because they are all impermanent. What do you think, friend Yamaka? Do you regard the Tathagata as one who is without body, without feeling, without perception, without volition, without consciousness? No, friend. But friend, when the Tathagata is not apprehended by you as real and actual here in this very life, is it fitting for you to declare, as I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, a monk whose asavas are destroyed is annihilated and perishes with the breakup of the body and does not exist after death? So here Venerable Sariputta finally makes the point that even in this very life, the Buddha, you cannot say is real and actual here. You can only describe him as the temporary aggregates, but that aggregates also is not him. So how can he be annihilated after he passes away? Then Venerable Yamaka said, formerly, friend Sariputta, when I was ignorant, I did hold that pernicious view. But now that I have heard this Dhamma teaching of the Venerable Sariputta, I have abandoned that pernicious view and have made the breakthrough to the Dhamma. That means he has seen the Dhamma as a mainstream entry. If friend Yamaka, they were to ask you, friend Yamaka, when a monk is an Arahant, one whose asavas are destroyed, what happens to him with the breakup of the body after death? Being asked thus, what would you answer? If they were to ask me this, friend, I would answer thus, friends, body is impermanent. What is impermanent is suffering. What is suffering has ceased and passed away. Similarly, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness are impermanent. What are impermanent are suffering. What is suffering have ceased and passed away. Being asked thus, friend, I would answer in such a way. Good friend Yamaka. Actually, this monk Yamaka, he has cultivated, has probably been the monk for many years. So when Venerable Sariputta explained this, he very quickly he grasped, understood the Dhamma. So he said he has seen the Dhamma. And then, so Venerable Sariputta to confirm that he understood, asked him, when an Arahant passes away, what happens to him? Then he says, if people ask me this, then I will say the five aggregates are suffering, and the five aggregates, when a person dies, the five aggregates have ceased and passed away, suffering has passed away. Good friend Yamaka. Now, friend Yamaka, I will make up a simile for you in order to convey the same meaning even more clearly. Suppose, friend Yamaka, there was a householder or a householder's son, a rich man with much wealth and property, protected by a bodyguard. Then some man would appear who wanted to ruin him, to harm him, to endanger him, to take his life. It will occur to that man, this householder or householder's son is a rich man with much wealth and property, protected by a bodyguard. It will not be easy to take his life by force. Let me get close to him and then take his life. Then he would approach that householder or householder's son and say to him, I would serve you, sir. Then the householder or householder's son would appoint him as a servant. The man would serve him, rising up before him, retiring after him, doing whatever he wants, agreeable in his conduct, endearing in his speech. The householder or householder's son would consider him a friend, a bosom friend, and he would place trust in him. But when the man becomes aware that the householder or householder's son has placed trust in him, then finding him alone, he would take his life with a sharp knife. What do you think, friend Yamaka? When that man had approached that householder or householder's son and said to him, I would serve you, sir, wasn't he a murderer even then, though the other did not recognize him as my murderer? And when the man was serving him, rising up before him, retiring after him, doing whatever he wants, agreeable in his conduct, endearing in his speech, wasn't he a murderer then too, though the other did not recognize him as my murderer? And when the man came upon him while he was alone and took his life with a sharp knife, wasn't he a murderer then too, though the other did not recognize him as my murderer? Yes, friend. So too, friend Yamaka, the unlearned, ordinary worldling, who does not see noble ones and is unskilled and untrained in their Dhamma, who does not see superior persons and is unskilled and untrained in their Dhamma, regards body as self, or self as possessing body, or body as in self, or self as in body. Similarly, he regards feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as self, or self as possessing the aggregates, or the aggregate as in the self, or self as in the aggregates. He does not understand as it really is, impermanent body as impermanent, impermanent feeling as impermanent, impermanent perception, volition, consciousness as impermanent. He does not understand as it really is, painful body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as painful. He does not understand as it really is, selfless body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness as selfless. He does not understand as it really is, conditioned body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as conditioned. He does not understand as it really is, murderous body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as murderous aggregates. He becomes engaged with body, clings to it, and takes a stand upon it as myself. Similarly, he becomes engaged with feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, clings to them, and takes a stand upon them as myself. These same five aggregates of clinging to which he becomes engaged and to which he clings to lead to his harm and suffering for a long time. But friend, the learned, noble disciple who sees noble ones, etc., does not regard body as self, or self as possessing body, or body as in self, or self as in body. Similarly, he does not regard feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as self, or self as possessing the aggregates, or the aggregate as in the self, or self as in the aggregates. He understands as they really are, impermanent body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness as impermanent. He understands as they really are, painful body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as painful aggregates. He understands as they really are, selfless body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as selfless aggregates. He understands as they really are, conditioned body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as conditioned aggregates. He understands as they really are, murderous body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as murderous aggregates. He does not become engaged with body, cling to it, and take a stand upon it as myself. He does not become engaged with feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, cling to them and take a stand upon them as myself. These same 5 aggregates of attachment to which he does not become engaged and to which he does not attach lead to his wealth and happiness for a long time. And then Venerable Yamaka said, so it is when Sariputta, for those venerable ones who have such compassionate and benevolent brothers in the holy life, to admonish and instruct them. And now that I have heard this Dhamma teaching of the Venerable Sariputta, my mind is liberated from the asavas by non-clinging. This is what the Venerable Sariputta said. Elated, the Venerable Yamaka delighted in the Venerable Sariputta statement. That's the end of the sutta. So you see, in our earliest discourses of the Buddha, the Buddha always praised Venerable Sariputta as the disciple with the highest wisdom. That's why you see, in several discourses, he can teach the other monks until they attain stream entry. Or like in this case, he taught this monk until this monk became an arahant. So the Buddha says that the Venerable Sariputta turns the Dhamma wheel exactly like the Buddha himself. That's why the Buddha praised Venerable Sariputta so much. But later, Mahayana books always try to belittle this Venerable Sariputta. So you see the last part, this Venerable Sariputta made this simile for this Venerable Yamaka, that just like a murderer wants to murder somebody, he comes disguised as a servant and serves that man very well, but one day when the man is alone, he kills him. So in the same way, our 5 aggregates serve us very well. We get pleasure from the 5 aggregates, and we are very pleased with the 5 aggregates. But the Venerable Sariputta says actually they are murderers, because when we cling to them, we attach to them as I and mine. Then when the 5 aggregates cease, when the body dies, and then we feel I die. That means I am murdered. Murdered by who? Murdered by these 5 aggregates, the same 5 aggregates that we cling to, we thought was our good friend, our source of happiness. But it turns out that because we cling to them, so when they die, we feel I died. But for somebody like an arahant, although he has the same aggregates, he does not cling to the aggregates. He sees them as not self. He sees them as impermanent, a source of suffering. So because he does not cling to them, when the body dies, he just knows the body being impermanent has lived its shelf life. The time has come, so it is dying. He does not attach to it, so he does not suffer. We suffer because we attach to the aggregates as I and mine. Here the teaching is to see them as murderers, not something to cling to attach to. So that's quite an interesting sutta, how he changed this monk from a wrong view to attain stream entry, and further after teaching him that simile, the monk attained liberation and became an arahant. The next sutta is 22.87. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. On that occasion, the Venerable Vakali was dwelling in a potter's shed, sick, afflicted, gravely ill. Then the Venerable Vakali addressed his attendants. Come friends, approach the Blessed One, pay homage to him in my name, with your head at his feet, and say, Venerable Sir, the monk Vakali is sick, afflicted, gravely ill. He pays homage to the Blessed One, with his head at his feet. Then say, it would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would approach the monk Vakali out of compassion. Yes, friend, those monks replied. And they approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and delivered their message. The Blessed One consented by silence. Then the Blessed One dressed, and taking bowl and robe, approached the Venerable Vakali. The Venerable Vakali saw the Blessed One coming in the distance, and stirred on his bed. The Blessed One said to him, "Enough, Vakali, do not stir on your bed. There are these seats ready. I will sit down there. Stop here for a moment." This Venerable Vakali is one of the monks who had great respect for the Buddha. So when the Buddha came to see him, even though he was actually dying, he was so sick, he was dying, he tried to get up, but the Buddha told him, "No need to get up, you have seats here, I will sit down." The Blessed One then sat down on the appointed seat and said to the Venerable Vakali, "I hope you are bearing up, Vakali. I hope you are getting better. I hope that your painful feelings are subsiding and not increasing, and that their subsiding, not their increase, is to be discerned, to be seen." "Venerable Sir, I am not bearing up. I am not getting better. Strong, painful feelings are increasing in me, not subsiding, and their increase, not their subsiding, is to be discerned." "I hope then, Vakali, that you are not troubled by remorse and regret." "Indeed, Venerable Sir, I have quite a lot of remorse and regret." "I hope, Vakali, that you have nothing for which to reproach yourself in regard to virtue." And he said, "I have nothing, Venerable Sir, for which to reproach myself in regard to virtue." "Then, Vakali, if you have nothing for which to reproach yourself in regard to virtue, why are you troubled by remorse and regret?" And he said, "For a long time, Venerable Sir, I have wanted to come and see the Blessed One, but I haven't been fit enough to do so." And the Buddha said, "Enough, Vakali. Why do you want to see this foul body? One who sees the Dhamma sees me. One who sees me sees the Dhamma. For in seeing the Dhamma, Vakali, one sees me. And in seeing me, one sees the Dhamma." I'll stop here for a moment. So he said, he has remorse and regret. Why? Not because he has broken the precepts, but because he wanted to see the Buddha for a long time, that he has been so sick, he has not been able to walk to see the Buddha. And now that the Buddha has come near to him, he asked the other monks to call the Buddha to come and see him. And the Buddha said, "Why do you want to see this smelly body? If you see the Dhamma, you have seen me. If you see me, you have seen the Dhamma." So now that we are studying the Dhamma, we are seeing the Dhamma, so we are seeing the Buddha also. What do you think, Vakali? Is body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Similarly, is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? And it says suffering. Is what is impermanent, subject to change, fit to be regarded as this is mine, this I am, this is myself. And he says, "No, Venerable Sir." So similarly for feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. So seeing thus, noble disciple becomes disenchanted and then dispassionate and becomes liberated. Then the Blessed One, having given this exhortation to the Venerable Vakali, rose from his seat and departed from Mount Vulture Peak. Then not long after the Blessed One had left, the Venerable Vakali addressed his attendants thus, "Come friends, lift me up on this bed and carry me to the black rock on the Isigili slope. How can one like me think of dying among the houses?" "Yes, friend," those monks replied, and having lifted up the Venerable Vakali on the bed, they carried him to the black rock on the Isigili slope. Stop here for a moment. This Venerable Vakali, because he was sick, they had put him in the potter's shed. He was dwelling in the potter's shed. But now that he knew that he was going to die, during the Buddha's time, almost all the monks were forest monks. So he had been living in the forest a long time. Now that he was approaching death, he thought if he dies in the potter's shed, it's like dying in a house, shameful. So he wanted to die in the open air. So he asked them to carry him to the black rock to die there. The Blessed One spent the rest of that day and night on Mount Vulture Peak. Then when the night was well advanced, two Devatas of stunning beauty approached the Blessed One, illuminating the whole of Vulture Peak. Standing to one side, one Devata said to the Blessed One, "Venerable Sir, the monk Vakali is intent on deliverance. The other Devata said, surely, Venerable Sir, he will be liberated as one well liberated. This is what those Devatas said. Having said this, they paid homage to the Blessed One, and keeping him on their right, they disappeared right there. Stop here for a moment. So here you see, in the middle of the night, two Devas came to inform the Buddha that the Venerable Vakali was striving with all his energy to attain liberation, to attain enlightenment, arahanthood. And then the other one said, definitely he will attain. These Devas, because they have psychic, they know what they're saying. This also shows sometimes the Buddha doesn't know something, they will come and inform the Buddha. Sometimes because the Buddha doesn't know, because the Buddha doesn't contemplate, sometimes he's deep in samadhi. Then when the night had passed, the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, come, monks, approach the monk Vakali and say to him, friend Vakali, listen to the word of the Blessed One and two Devatas. Last night, friend, when the night was well advanced, two Devatas of stunning beauty approached the Blessed One. One Devata said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, the monk Vakali is intent on deliverance. The other Devata said, surely, Venerable Sir, he will be liberated, as one well liberated. And the Blessed One says to you, friend Vakali, do not be afraid, Vakali, do not be afraid. Your death will not be a bad one. Your demise will not be a bad one. Let's stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is asking the monks to inform the Venerable Vakali that the Deva said that he will attain liberation, which is also an encouragement for him to press on and attain liberation. And also probably the Buddha foresaw that he was going to commit suicide. So the Buddha told him, don't be afraid, your death will not be evil. When you die, you won't. There will be nothing wrong with it. I think that's a hint to him that whatever he does, don't worry, it's not evil. Yes, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. And they approached the Venerable Vakali and said to him, friend Vakali, listen to the word of the Blessed One and two Devas. Then the Venerable Vakali addressed his attendants, come friends, lower me from the bed. How can one like me think of listening to the Blessed One's teaching while seated on a high seat? Yes, friend, those monks replied, and they lowered the Venerable Vakali from the bed. Stop here for a moment. You see, this Venerable Vakali has so much respect for the Buddha that when they wanted to pass a message to him from the Buddha, immediately he said to put him on the ground. He doesn't want to listen to the Buddha sitting on the bed. And they told him, last night, friend, two Devatas of stunning beauty approached the Blessed One. One Devata said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, the monk Vakali is intent on deliverance. The other Devata said, surely, Venerable Sir, he will be liberated as one well liberated. And the Blessed One says to you, friend Vakali, do not be afraid, Vakali, do not be afraid. Your death will not be a bad one. Your demise will not be a bad one. And he said, well then, friends, pay homage to the Blessed One in my name with your feet at his head, and say, Venerable Sir, the monk Vakali is sick, afflicted, gravely ill. He pays homage to the Blessed One with his head at his feet. Then say, body is impermanent. I have no doubt about this, Venerable Sir. I do not doubt that whatever is impermanent is suffering. I do not doubt that in regard to what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, I have no more desire, lust or affection. Similarly, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness are impermanent. I have no perplexity about this. I do not doubt that whatever is impermanent is suffering. I do not doubt that in regard to what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, I have no more desire, lust or affection. Yes, friend, those monks replied, and then they departed. Stop here for a moment. So here is asking them to inform the Buddha then he has no more doubt that he has cut off desire and lust for the 5 aggregates. In other words, probably he has already attained arahanthood. He's trying to tell them to tell the Buddha that he has no doubt about his attainment. So the monks departed. Then not long after those monks had left, the Venerable Vakali used the knife. That means he committed suicide with the knife. Then those monks approached the Blessed One and delivered their message. The Blessed One then addressed the monks thus: "Come monks, let us go to the black rock on the Isigili slope, where the clansman Vakali has used the knife." "Yes, Venerable Sir," those monks replied. Then the Blessed One, together with a number of monks, went to the black rock on the Isigili slope. The Blessed One saw in the distance the Venerable Vakali lying on the bed with his shoulder turned. Now on that occasion a cloud of smoke, a swirl of darkness, was moving to the east, then to the west, to the north, to the south, upwards, downwards, and to the intermediate quarters. The Blessed One then addressed the monks thus: "You see, monks, that cloud of smoke, that swirl of darkness, moving to the east, then to the west, then to the north, to the south, upwards, downwards, and to the intermediate quarters." "Yes, Venerable Sir." "That, monks, is Mara, the evil one, searching for the consciousness of the clansman Vakali, wondering, where now has the consciousness of the clansman Vakali been established? However, monks, with consciousness unestablished, the clansman Vakali has attained final Nibbana." That's the end of the sutta. So here, at the end, you see, Mara is looking to find out where did Vakali take rebirth, where did his consciousness go to. But the Buddha says, his consciousness is no more. He will not attain, he will not take rebirth, he has attained Nibbana. So this confirms that all the Arahants have finished their work. Not like the Mahayana books say, they have not finished their work. Just like the Buddha, when they enter Nibbana, their consciousness, all the 6 consciousness ceases. So you see this monk, he was in great pain, his body, he was dying, and he knew he was dying, that's why he put all his effort to attain liberation. So that's why the Devas realized that he was putting so much effort, he surely will attain liberation. So the Buddha also foresaw that he would attain liberation. So the Buddha told him, whatever you do, don't be afraid. Maybe with that comforting words of the Buddha, he committed suicide. Because for an Arahant to commit suicide, there's nothing wrong with it. He does not kill a cell because there's no more cell to kill. And although Arahant is liberated, the Buddha says he still has body suffering. All Aryans, all noble ones have eliminated mental suffering, but they still have body suffering. So because of his great body suffering, at that time they did not have painkillers like we have now. So he's used the knife as a painkiller. We'll stop here. Anything to discuss? Yes, the Buddha said for a lay person, you practice the 8 precepts once a week. During the Buddha's time, they practice on the 8th day of the lunar calendar, the 15th, 23rd, and the 30th day. So either you can follow that, or you choose one day of the week that is convenient. For example, Sunday or Saturday or whatever. And Makka is the one with the wrong view. I think it's stated in the sutta that after Venerable Sariputta explained, he said he made the breakthrough to the Dhamma, attained arahanthood. From the sutta itself, it appears like the same day. Method is the same in the what is stated in the suttas. We keep our sila, we practice meditation to strengthen the mind, and study the suttas to get wisdom, and then also other conditions. You see, for example, if a person can practice aloofness, not associating with others, so so that he can put more effort, and other things like there's a list on the charana, conduct or practice for a monk, contentment, practicing contentment, and moderation in eating, the Jagarayanu Yoga, how do you say, trying to keep awake, not to sleep so much, and guarding the sense doors, don't expose yourself to these sense doors. You see, the sense doors are quite important because they are the guardians, whether we allow certain things to come into our senses or not. Because if the wrong things come into our senses, then it stirs up our passions and all that. So it's helpful to restrict yourself. You know certain things, for example, the internet is not good, then you don't try to cut off the internet. Watching TV and all that, try to follow people, not to indulge in them. For a monk, because a monk, if you stay in a forest monastery, all these actually are already cut off. So you can have a look at the charana, the conduct, right? But you see, like that day we read the suttas on the monk, what's his name? The one who uttered inspired verses. Vangisa, the Venerable Vangisa, being a young monk, he was always disturbed by sensual thoughts. But because of his understanding of the Dhamma, his determination was very strong to, like in the first sutta you read, all the monks had left the monastery, he was alone guarding the monastery. And then these beautiful girls came in, well dressed and all that, and then all his previous habits all came up now, the thoughts. So then he decided, who can help him? Nobody can help him because his thoughts are inside. So he decided to fight his own thoughts inside. That's why last night I mentioned the mind is the forerunner of all states. If you think you are weak, then you will be weak. If you think you are strong and you make your determination to be strong, then you are strong. Whether you allow yourself to be weak or to be strong also depends on your understanding. If you have a good understanding of the Dhamma, then you will realize that even though it's difficult also, I also I'll do it. Just like the Buddha says, having known the Dhamma, you should make the determination, let my body waste away, let only the bones and the skin remain, but I will not slack in my energetic striving until attain what can be attained by manly effort, manly striving. So understanding the Dhamma is very important. If you understand, then we know difficult also, we have to do it. Then our mind, we have to make the resolve. If you don't have the resolve, you can never do anything. If you start off, you already think, I can't, then definitely you can't. Restlessness is something quite difficult because if you look at the 5 higher factors, actually the restlessness is eliminated only by the Arahant. So only thing is, as we grow older, we don't become so restless. It's like temper also. When we are young, our temper is very great. As we go older, slowly, our fire cool down. So also, whether it's physical age or spiritual age, if you are spiritually mature, you listen a lot to the Buddha's words, then you become old spiritually. Then it's faster to let go of all these things. So you have to observe your own self. Each person is different. There is something in the sutta about balancing. When you put too much effort, then restlessness arises. then in that case, you must concentrate harder to attain tranquility, to attain samadhi. And if you find that sitting is difficult, when you're restless, then you do walking. This one you have to see the consequences of your action, see whether it's at the expense of your practice or not. If it affects your practice, then you have to consider again not to spend so much time in the kitchen. A lot of things sometimes we have to reflect and consider. Like the Buddha says, whatever we do, before doing it, we must reflect. That's the consequences. And then while we are doing also, we must reflect whether it's beneficial or it's harmful. And after we have done it also, we must reflect. So we constantly reflect on our actions, then our actions become more and more purified, and more skillful.